Thank you. And I call the August 16, 2022 meeting of the Advisory Committee to order. And let me read that this meeting is being held in person and or remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is anyone recording this meeting?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to call the Public Safety Building Committee meeting to order as well. I'd just read a brief statement before the chair joins you formally. This is in the event that other members of this committee join us remotely by Zoom. This meeting is being offered remotely as an alternative means of public access pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts 2022 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. I would also note for the record that Tina Sherwood is joining us remotely, and the other members of the committee are in person in the meeting room. So the first item on our agenda is questions from the public about items that are not on the agenda. Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I will move on to the approval of minutes from the August 2nd, 2022 meeting. Tina, would you like to address the committee? And you are on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. There were only a few minor changes, noting the rest of the members of the group working to edit the AdCom rules, and just a few other small changes in the notes. I resent them this afternoon for everyone's perusal.
Okay. Are there any additional comments about the minutes of August the 2nd? Hearing none, I will accept a motion.
So move second, accept minutes.
Second. Okay, because of the nature of this meeting, we have to do a roll call vote. So I'll go around the room and ask you for your vote. Please say aye, nay, or abstain if you're not here. So Brenda?
Aye.
Andy? Aye. Nancy?
Aye.
Evelyn?
Aye. Abstain.
Okay, abstain. Kristen?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
And Carol?
Aye.
And Tina?
Aye.
All right. So can you find out how long they're going to be, or? Oh, no, it's okay. All right. Well, you want to go next one? Just check and see.
Text them.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to just check. Apparently the chiefs and Bob are next door with the select board. And they're the next agenda item on our topic here. And if they're going to be a while, then we'll switch ahead or skip ahead. And if they're coming directly, then we'll just wait a second for them. So. Well, why don't we skip ahead to agenda item 5, liaison reports. Are there any liaison reports this evening? Brenda, go first.
The Climate Action Planning Committee has been very active this summer, meeting at least a couple times a month. One of the most recent decision on their part is to hold their next community engagement meeting with Hingham residents on September 14th. It's an in-person meeting here at Town Hall. It's a time where the committee will be presenting the ideas that they have so far for the town's climate action plan and looking for feedback on both the ideas and also stages of implementation for the town. So very much encourage people to attend and participate.
What was the date of that?
September 14th. And they're at the moment, they also are thinking that there will be a Zoom version of this a couple of weeks later. But right now, the 14th is an in-person meeting. This is the second of the 3 public engagement events that are planned. The 3rd of January, we'll be presenting sort of what the climate action plan looks like at that point for final report on implementation. This is one of the basic ideas.
And they've got a survey going, do they not?
Survey has been out for a while. That was another piece of their engagement work. This is an in-person meeting. Here at Town Hall in the big central meeting house, meeting room downstairs.
Thank you. Nancy, you had an update?
Yes, on the Sustainable Budget Task Force, they met last week to discuss the viability of solar panels on Foster and other town buildings as a revenue source. And after a very long walk around the block, it was determined that that would be, there might be some opportunity there, but it's really an infrastructure spend that is very difficult to tie to a particular project. So there was actually a little bit of a discussion about the idea that there needs to be a separate budget in town to support these sustainable programs, because it's really difficult to put that on individual projects with the pressures that each individual department already has. So, so anyway, so that might, I wouldn't be surprised if we were to see something along those lines as a warrant article in the not too distant future.
Yeah, so would that include an appropriation at that time or just a?
I think that's, so one of the things, and I just know this from the public safety, so this is in that context, but in terms of, like, I know when we were discussing in terms of the public safety facility, do you make it solar ready? Do we purchase the solar as part of it? And it was a very clear from the architects that the technology is changing so fast, it makes no sense to budget for that in the beginning. And then because the technology is going to be totally different by the time you get to the end of the project. And I think that the school building committee got the same advice from their architects. So I know there's been conversation that I've heard about that Tom has discussed and other people have discussed in town, that they're looking to do kind of a mass spend for solar panels. But I think if I understood, I don't know if you understood it the same way, but I understood that conversation as kind of saying that we need to look at our infrastructure more than just the solar panels, but also for electric vehicles and for putting in charging stations and retrofitting current buildings and blah, blah, blah. So I there would have to be an appropriation,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it would be tied to the actual warrant article, because I think they would first have to set something up and then appropriate it, right, as they needed money.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kathy?
Well, the Harbor Development Committee is having a great summer. The boat ramp is finished.
It's fabulous.
Nice.
And there will be a big celebration of this accomplishment on September 10th. Initially, they thought that Lieutenant Governor Polito would join them, but apparently their schedules have conflicts. But on September 10th, they'll have face painting and balloons, and touch a boat, and a variety of other things for most of the day. they're very happy with the outcome of the boat ramp. And something, also talked about sort of the harbor master plan, walkway around the harbor, and originally they were gonna do a tour tomorrow, but we rescheduled it to September, so I thought that'd be an interesting thing to do.
I had no idea that the boat ramp was gonna be anything more than replacing the little concrete.
We got floats
By
out, water.
total happenstance, I was on the launch the other day with a guy from Cohasset who was raving about our boat ramp. Like, you could have lived here.
Well, it's all state funded though, right?
Yes, yeah.
No town.
I didn't
funds.
Okay.
We'll take credit, right? Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else or?
I do, George.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tina. Sorry. Thank you.
Sure. Well, capital project. Oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Am I all right?
Yeah, you sound very clear.
Okay. The capital project financing options working group has met twice since our last AdCom meeting. We met together with Tom, Michelle, Sue, Bill Ramsey, Lori Magner, and John Asher, together with Janet Morley from Capital Markets Advisors, Rick Manley, our bond counsel, and John Coughlin, to have an open conversation with Janet and Rick about their view of the markets and questions about how to structure the debt for Foster and the public safety building. We covered a lot of ground. After that, we met with John Asher, who gave us a thorough overview of his financial planning model that he had created for the town to look at how the decisions we make impact the budget and the taxpayer. The current numbers in the model are not accurate because the forecast group is still working through the 5-year forecast, but the numbers in the model have been updated from the March 22 numbers. It was just, I assume Brenda and Lindsay and Jason would support me in saying it really was a really important week. We really got a lot done. The town administrator will be giving the select board an update on the process and the progress to date on next Tuesday, August 23rd.
Is John's model now on the town website or?
It's not, because they don't want to put out numbers until they are accurate.
Okay.
And they need to get the forecast finished. But it really was such an impressive model. And there are so many things so many changes and inputs that you can make to really see what the impacts are going to be this year and in the out years. It's amazing.
All right, good, excellent, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Sue, any update?
Do you want me to go next door?
Let's,
Their door is open.
okay, well, yeah, why don't you go?
We're gonna get bond, you know that.
I think that we should be international.
Oh, I
That's why
don't
we
know.
got on, because we had never been on before. We talked to the international. Yeah.
Does anybody know if Dave Anderson was at Chisholm?
Oh,
Yeah, he's back.
He was not there when the attack took place on some university.
I think he was back the first week of March.
And our chair completed the Pan Am Challenge in umpteen time this weekend. It was only 100 degrees, 100%.
What was the completion rate, do you know? Was it off? It's had.
There were only like a half dozen people who left to go before related to Trump.
It sounded like from the press coverage of it, it
Yeah.
seemed like it was incredible. I mean.
This
I
board
poked
is
my head in and look who comes up.
like some electrolytes, like some.
It looked like it, the stories, they just take a little umbrella and a hat, a little umbrella.
Yes, so. A couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes, okay.
I think Sean's turn.
Is that the Sean? They just made up the whole presentation for the select board.
Okay.
So they'll be well practiced.
This is the Hingham doubleheader special. Right? For the next.
Right.
Picture flash.
Are they presenting anything here? Because I thought not.
We don't, no, we're not having a presentation, no. No. We're having a Q&A. Yeah.
I like the Q&A.
So since we have a few minutes, we can move on to the next item. So item 6 on our agenda is a discussion of ad count housekeeping items. And just a few things that I want to raise. So next Tuesday, the 23rd, we will have a hearing on Foster School. And we will also get a first look at the draft comment for the public safety building. And then the following Tuesday, the 30th, we will hear Article C, which is the stabilization fund. And we will also have first look at a draft comment on the Foster School. And both of these meetings will be hybrid. So if you're traveling away or whatever, you can dial in, or hopefully you will be in person with the rest of us. Yeah, he has a question.
Could I ask that the questions from Tina's minutes of the last meeting concerning the Foster School be forwarded to the school building committee so that they'll have some sense of what questions will be asked?
Sure, we can do that.
I thought of that was asked.
And I think Nesferetti was here taking notes.
Sorry.
Yeah,
She was, yeah.
Okay.
So Tina, do you have the questions that were discussed at our last
They're in
meeting?
the minutes.
They're in the minutes.
Thank you.
George? So should I send out the new guidelines, editing guidelines, since they're gonna be writing comments, or are you gonna send those out? We haven't sent those to the whole
Yeah,
committee yet.
I will send them. Thank you.
So when are you expecting the draft copy for Article C?
Hopefully on the 30th.
That's the timeline we're on, so okay. Good to know.
And we don't, not hearing that.
The stabilization fund, so Article C is on the 30th. Foster is next week.
Just the Q and A is next week, and then the draft is the 30th. That week.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. We've had lots of new guests with us. Good to see all of you. I hope you have not been totally worn out by the meeting next door, and that you still have time for a few questions from the members of the committee here.
Them.
I don't think so.
Let me just bring some chairs over here. Inquisition.
Well, Bob, I would choose not to use that word. But, just an informal discussion. You all have to be next to the podium to the microphone.
It wasn't like it was on it, to be honest.
All right, well, thank you all. So the agenda item is a hearing and discussion on the public safety building. which is identified as Article B for the special town meeting scheduled for November 1st. The article states, will the town raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to be expended under the direction of the select board to be used to pay for professional fees, construction, equipping, and furnishing a new public safety facility located at 335 Lincoln Street, Hingham, Massachusetts, or act on anything relating thereto. So just by way of background, for anybody who was not at our August 2nd meeting, we had a presentation by the Public Safety Building Committee. And following that meeting on October the 9th, the advisory committee got together and had a discussion about that presentation. There were a number of questions and comments raised by the members of the committee. And so we wanted to bring everybody back together so we could have sort of a dialogue, a Q&A, if you will, on any questions and concerns that people have about the facility. So joining us this evening are Chief Jones from the Police Department. Chief Murphy is zooming in at the meeting, and Bob Garrity, Chair of the Public Safety Building Committee. And Bob, I'll let you introduce other members who are here.
Sure. For the building committee, we did host a meeting, but Paul Haley advised us that we didn't have a quorum.
Okay.
We do have Paul Haley, which is the vice chair, and Don Smallwood with us tonight. We also have Paul Callis, who is the chief person from Hingham International, who's the owner's project manager of this project. Paul can probably answer a lot of questions here, but his main focus with the selectmen was on budget issues and budget issues, and budget. Sean Schmigel is the architect, so any kind of design related issues, he will know all the answers. I'm just taking notes, and the chiefs are both here, so any administrative issues, I'm sure they can talk about. Anywhere you want to start, then we're ready to go.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. So what I would propose to do is just to go around the room and let each AdCom member ask an initial question and a follow-up. And we will go around as often as we need to until all the questions have been asked. We do have one member who is joining us remotely, Tina. So let me ask Brenda to start.
I have been following this project pretty intensely since you folks have been working on it. So I appreciate all the things that have gone into designing this building, especially all the things that are designed to make it a more sustainable building. In some ways, you're sort of the first building being designed in town here based on the town's commitment to a net zero future. So one of the things that I'm wondering about from a budgeting point of view is investing this kind of money into creating a building that is very close to net zero. What do you expect will be the cost for running it? Will they be same as what currently for the two buildings, the fire department and the police, or less? Or what can we expect over time in terms of what the operating budget's going to look like?
Yeah, I can touch on it a little bit. So Sean Schmigel from Custom Associates, project associate principal and project manager for the job. So similar question just over here a few minutes ago. But basically, there's a little bit of an upfront charge for doing all electric system, which I'm sure most of you understand that. But the buyback period for general maintenance, general usage of power over the course of the life of the expectancy of the building or the system is much quicker. So I don't have the exact budget for what it would be for each year. We are in the process of doing those analyses to provide that for an operational piece as well as for the administration, for Tom and his team. But like I said, it's a much quicker buyback over the expectancy. I think it's like this first 7 to 10 years, the system is paid off, built into the efficiencies, sorry, being as efficient over the course of the life of that portion of the building. So like I said, upfront costs are a little bit higher, but you pay off the system much faster over the usage of it, the amount of usage of electricity to keep it cool.
And the life expectancy of the mechanical systems that provide the heat and cooling.
Yeah, so it really comes down to the maintenance piece of it, but this heating cooling system that we have designed for this, the heat building, it's a piped system with some ductwork. There's a lot of just moving water around, so it's pipes and pumps and pipes. So it's the maintenance on those types of products are very limited. So replace the pump here, replace the pump there, not the end of the world, and then just maintain the pipes that run. You'll have condensers or heat pumps that will heat and cool the building. Those are usually about 25, 30 years, but again, if you're maintaining it, you get a little bit of extra life on that. And with the adaptability of mechanical systems up and coming, heat pump systems, all electric systems, they're really striving to be more efficient. So whatever it may be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, there could be a swap depending on, but I would assume that would be more into the operational budgets as it progresses.
Thank you.
I have 3 questions. One is, what is the estimate of the annual maintenance costs of the building?
So we don't calculate those, so a lot of it is we estimate the construction costs of each of the systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, what the architectural elements are. From a heating and cooling, it's called life cycle cost analysis that we'll do for like an energy model. That'll kind of at least give a budgetary number of what it would cost electrically to run heat and cool the building. But we don't go to that level of analysis for yearly maintenance. A lot of that gets driven by the first years of occupancy.
The first
year of occupancy. How much electricity, gas, and fuel is used to operate it. It's challenging to provide that specifically at this stage because every municipality, every department utilizes their facility differently. But being a 24/7 facility, lights are on, but they're all triggered by occupancy sensors. So if they're not occupied, the lights will turn off. There's daylighting elements, which means if we're in this room and there's a lot of daylight coming in, the lights would dim down, so it utilizes less electricity. Similarly, with the heating and cooling spaces, it's treated by occupancy and CO2. So in this space, there's quite a bit of CO2. So they're going to be pushing more fresh air into the space. So all of these come into play of how much energy gets used. So it's very challenging without a year's time of occupancy or 6 months or whatever it is. We can ballpark it, but to give an exact number, it's
there's no there's no ballpark figure that you can say, okay, X percentage of building costs. You could figure that's what it would take you each year to maintain it in the condition it should be maintained. But I don't know. I'm not challenging.
Yeah, that's challenging. That the building wide, that's challenging. But going back to the heating and cooling piece of it, we can like the buyback, pay up front, and then how much energy is saved and costs associated with that. So again, it's challenging to give it an exact number, but I can go back and speak to their engineers to kind of give an idea based on the building the size, almost all electric, what 20% so could be.
I thought there might be a ballpark figure, but if there isn't, there isn't, but it clearly, your answer previously said, subject to maintaining the building. So it's just something that the police and fire chiefs have to consider as new budget items, I think, because maintenance of a facility like that is super important. I think you probably answered this question, but again, on the sea level rise issue, what's the elevation of the building above sea level?
I believe we're about 10 feet above the high level of sea.
50-year high.
Yeah, 50-year high. It's about 10 feet.
10 feet above high tide? So, but, and you're satisfied that whatever the forecasts are, that, I'm just thinking of water flying across that parking lot. And, but you've already figured that.
Yeah, it was one of the very first questions back in feasibility study prior to the purchase of the property. Reason I went to see if JR was JR Fred. Just to, he's been well involved in answering those, other committees and groups. Our civil engineer has been heavily involved in that as well. So, but I do know roughly that 10 feet, plus or minus, and then there was we're currently in the middle of going through planning board, and the third party engineer was reviewing, our stormwater management system, where the elevation of that was, where we wanted that, where he preferred to see that above the high rise of the high tide level. So that all got modified to be above meeting that.
Thank you. So the last question, I guess, is for the chiefs. Do you have any sense or projection of how many years out this has been designed for? That's not a very articulate question, but I guess not really explain what I mean. Obviously, the duties of the police and fire departments have changed dramatically over the past, let's say, 25 years. And so the assumption is they will change even more dramatically over the next 20, 25 years. And I don't know what kind of crystal balls you have to look into the future, but that's to the extent it's possible to do that. I assume that's all been taken into account. You're content with the current design?
Yeah, on the police side, I'm very content. We work closely with KVA on projections, estimated population of town, call volume, et cetera, to gauge, what was it, 60 years?
Between 60 and 75 years. The building goes back to maintenance. Maintain it well, 75 years.
But to your point, when I first got on, I never would have imagined that we would have had domestic violence advocates and mental health clinicians working with us. So that's a great, example for your point. This building does allow for expansion and does allow for adaptation to any new roles that come up. On the police side, anyway. I don't want to speak for Chief Murphy.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Chief Murphy.
Yeah, I'll comment. First of all, can everyone hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I thank you, and I echo Chief Jones's comments that this facility is designed for the future. We are actually adding additional storage space beyond what we plan on needing initially, and that includes actually to move some things that are that we currently don't have the proper space at headquarters, specifically a lot of PPE that we didn't know about with COVID. The storeroom is pretty full. Other things that this adds the ability for is, I'm sure you've seen the designs. We do not have any intention right now of locating the Quinta there, but this building is being designed that it could house that if we chose to do that in the future. We're also adding additional bunk rooms on the third floor and there's an additional office and actually, I believe it's 2 offices on the second floor that, again, just, things that we don't currently need, but we are building for the future for it. So.
As all homeowners would tell you that the more storage space, the better.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you.
Let me just ask a question, Chief, and I will preface it by saying my recollections may be a little faulty, but I did pull out this past year's warrant. And in particular, I looked at the fire department large capital needs. And in particular, I was looking at the air conditioning systems and the fact that some of the systems don't talk to each other, parts are hard to obtain for repair and that sort of thing. And just trying to recall some of the conversations that we had when you came before the committee last year to talk about the systems that had been put into the Central Street expansion. And just want to make sure, and Bob and Sean, I guess this goes to you guys too, is that we're not building something and we're not putting systems into this building that are state of the art, but incredibly difficult to maintain and to operate by I'll call them normal, everyday, either police or fire department personnel. So can somebody just speak to that, please?
Sure. Yeah. So going back to what I commented before, there are ducts, but it's a pipe system for heating and cooling. So it's pump maintenance, some pipe maintenance, and then a lot of there's some condensers and heat pump systems. So I guess that's a long way of just saying it's fairly simplified, but it is all electric. So I'll say it's simple, but it's simpler. It could be. But I mean, any general technician, it's normal practice nowadays. All electric type systems. But buildings do become a lot smarter nowadays. With the technology of, as I was discussing about the lighting sensors, occupancy sensors, the daylighting. Sometimes, not to speak to the Hingham departments, but it can get somewhat overly complicated. So since it is quite smart, it can be dumbed down to a simpler system. Turn light switches on and off versus all the daylighting infrastructure. It's still all there to create a building most efficient and provide utilization of the least energy as possible. That's but the adaptability is there. I know I kind of went around the question, but it's a simplified system on the design end. Maintenance, it's generally, with any basic knowledge of systems, it's pretty well done.
Yeah. I'm not asking that you dumb down the system, and I know those are your words. I just want to ensure that we're utilizing a system that is as efficient as it can be. And I certainly like the idea of you walk into the room, if the sensor kicks on the light, you leave the room and the sensor turns it on. But I also want to make sure that this is a system that can be operated by people if we need to turn the heat up. Need to pull out the manual and say, how do I program the thermostat so that it raises the temperature 2 degrees or lowers it? It's fairly intuitive, if you will.
It's fairly intuitive. There is training involved, so at the end of construction, we'll if we get to that level, there is extensive trainings with the department, not only with the commissioning agent, but the installers. So, whomever the facilities person is, either police and fire or through the town, they'll be heavily involved. One of the benefits of smarter buildings nowadays is that there's a lot of remote access. So not to say somebody wants to change the degree 1 degree, you want to go call somebody, but there is traditional thermostats in every room, so that ability is there if the departments choose to allow that. Okay. So it's again, you can make it as smart as you want, or as simplified as you want. So it really comes down to the operational needs with each of the departments, as well as maintenance of the building, you know, who will be maintaining.
All right, thank you.
So a little bit of a follow-up to that. I know right now, not so much at the police department, but at the fire station. The firefighters do a lot of the maintenance in the building itself. And I don't know if Chief Murphy, if your guys, how they feel about that in the new facility. And
You really threw him for a loop. Chief, you-
Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. Yeah, that's actually a question that Chief Jones and I have had with Tom Mayo already, because this is obviously a much larger building, and as Nancy just pointed out, the firefighters, we typically tend to maintain a lot more of our facility. We do our own snow plowing, our own snow blowing. We, maintain the grounds, everything else. So that was already discussed, especially the fact that, there are some systems in it that we may not be familiar with. For example, Town Hall, their maintenance staff has a little bit more background in HVAC or training in it or anything else. So we've discussed that already. I can't speak as to what is, the town will eventually decide on that, but we are having those conversations. So.
Okay, great. And then I had another one, which is, I know you're still, this is for both the chiefs, but I know you're still in the process, but going through planning and conservation, are you comfortable with where the conversations are going and that you're kind of ahead of where they are in thinking, or are there red flags that still need to be worked through?
So we just went through our second hearing 2 Mondays ago. And based on the comments, we were able to kind of shift around. I mean, we had some waivers in line for, one being parking, some lighting requirements, some of the parking needs. So based on some of the concerns and the requirements, the concerns they had, we were able to kind of shift around parking in the secured area, which in the end, actually, I think will make it a better product. Restriping the parking, secured parking area for back in only, both personal vehicles and emergency vehicles. We lost a few spots based on that. We ended up with 5 lost spots in the secured area, but it's still sufficient enough for the day-to-day operations. So those were kind of the balancing pieces that we've been answering to the planning board. So with that, what we were only but asking one waiver, which is the curb cut width along 3A, which is the emergency apron going up, it's about 96 feet. And then the rear apron off of that season for the public entrance, where we're not supposed to exceed 20 feet. So those are both emergency access points. So that's the
Does
only.
planning do that, or does the state?
So the state waiver, not a waiver. 3A, yes, is a state road. But since the curb cut is still on the property, it's kind of two requests on 3A.
Yeah.
But on the Essington side, it's still.
And then when we went to town meeting before, the building was what we said in the warrant, the building was 93% electric. And my understanding is we're closer to 100%.
It's not quite 100%. So it's all electric with the exception of the heat recovery in the apparatus bay.
So that's still.
Yeah, so that's still a natural gas. Just because in those cold months, that shoulder season in the winter months, depending on how many times that's opening up, we really need to recover that heat. It's there, as well as the slab in the apparatus bay is radiant slab. So those two elements will be sourced by fuel. Everywhere else, all electric, with the exception of the emergency generator, which will be diesel, but that's pretty self-explanatory. I think self-explanatory.
Yeah. That is. Thank you.
So my question, I think, goes more to the planning that led to this building in the sense of that this is the design and this is what we want. So I'm curious as to how certain we are, I guess, or how we came up with this size building being needed. Did we look at other communities that, you know, I go by the one in Situate all the time, which looks fairly new. I don't know exactly when it was built, but did we look at other facilities and how are we sort of comparing to those? Because I think people are going to want to know, and I think probably part of the comment is going to be about why this size, why this design. So I wondered, I don't know if that's really more of a committee question or the architect question or the chief.
I can pick
Or
up.
that's just why are we?
Yeah, I can start with it. You know, so about 2 years ago, we started with a feasibility study, which I'm sure you're all very well familiar with. So we did initial programming, initial interviews with departments, and really came in with their current needs. I don't say some wants, but there's some needs and wants. Taking those needs and wants, looking for duplication, finding the efficiencies, combining them together, and then programming out the building. About a year and a half ago, we were a little bit larger. Came back to the table, started making reductions, pretty much came down to the bare minimum of what would be sufficient for each department to operate, not only opening day, but for that future expansion. KBA, we've been doing public safety facilities for the last 65 years. I think about 85 or 86 in the Commonwealth. So we're very well in tune with what the needs are, you know, and needs are changing yearly. So, you know, speaking to other municipalities, other departments, it all comes down in the end, budget. You know, if you can afford certain, you know, expandability, space, you know, on the property. So, you know, whether you maximize it out or, you know, provide for future growth. Here it was fortunate that we were able to provide this property, and, you know, we were able to maximize both parking and program needs on the premises. You know, so there's a lot that comes into play with all that, but, you know, a lot of it comes down to the general needs for the departments to operate and to function opening day, plus to the future of 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be. So, you know, Chief Jones spoke to call volumes and certain population. I believe right now you're between 25, 26,000 residents. We designed to 30,000, which is the anticipated growth over the next 25 or so years. Backing that up from population to number of sworn officers, and then that's where the growth comes into play with inside the building. So we're providing extra bunks, as Chief Murphy noted. Chief Jones, we're providing some extra space within detective areas, domestic witness advocates, and you know, other areas where there are growing too, and what's more needs for each of those services.
So I wonder, just as a follow-up, and I don't know if this might be for the chiefs, but to the extent that you interact, either you through KDA or chiefs through their own professional work with places that have built new facilities, are there things they wish, you know, have we been in conversation about, are there things they missed, things they wish they would have done, things that they made, you know, I don't know if they call them a mistake, but that would help us in terms of making sure we don't do that.
Yeah, definitely. We toured a lot of facilities. You mentioned Situate. We toured their facility a number of times. One thing that we took away from them is they had designed what they thought was a future-proof locker room setup. However, right now, their female locker room is already over capacity. And they don't have a way like KBA designed to sort of shift that wall to accommodate for changing demographics and male-female ratio. So that's one example of a lesson learned that we picked up from a fairly new facility. So Norwell's another example right next door to a combined police fire facility as well. And let Chief Murphy dive in if he has any.
Thanks, Chief. So yes, we too have done our homework and have spoken with different departments, including, Situate, Needham. That Needham is, the fire station is opened there. They worked with KBA. So we've looked at a lot of different things like that. There's also a lot of national resources that are available as well. A year ago, I actually attended a fire station design conference in St. Louis that had a number of different, either people that were in the design process or chiefs that had already completed it. They were there to, basically it was a 3-day conference. So that was excellent. Likewise, there's also in one of the main magazines for the fire stations called Firehouse Magazine. They're constantly doing supplements on building a new fire station and best case practices, whatever the case. So yeah, I think we've come back with some of those ideas to KBA and, been able to discuss them and in many cases add them into the building.
Thank you. I'm not surprised by that, but you just confirmed it. So that's always good. That's all for me.
Thank you.
My question is kind of basically has been asked. It's really around just understanding the operating costs. It sounds like we don't really have a good range right now. Twofold, right? So the public safety building run costs are going to be net new to the town, right? Where Foster is going to be, a little bit of an offset because there's already existing costs there. So I think it's really important to kind of have an estimate of what those costs are going to be if we're kind of thinking about how we, write our comments to the town to understand the override coming up, potential override, what the impact is. The other question that's been always on my mind when I moved here, my house was all electric, and I was paying close to $900 a month in heating costs, and obviously switched to more efficient, but now we're going to all electric, and so in my mind, I'm absolutely concerned about the cost of an all electrical run building, even if it is finishing. So really understanding what that's going to be is really important in terms of, I think not only mine, but others in the town. So I don't know if there's an actual question in there. It's just more of like, if we need to really understand what the run is.
Okay, good point.
No, it's understood. Thanks.
I guess the assumption would be it's more expensive than the facilities right now.
Right, but like how much more, right? Because we're already proposing an override, and then this is going to be after that when it's actually up and running. And so what does that actually look like? I don't know who can provide that estimate, or just obviously agree, but
Do we know what the operating costs are?
I'm sure we can pull them out of the budgets.
Do we know what the operating costs are for the Situate's new facility?
I don't, but I could get it. A challenge with the police side anyway is that we're in town hall.
Right.
So then a lot of it's paid by town hall. So like our electric is paid by town hall.
I think that's
It's not
quite now. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I can certainly get information from Situate about what their costs have been.
it is what it is. It's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that it, Kit?
Yeah.
All right,
One and done.
one and done. Okay, Kristen.
I think this is just a general, looking at overall costs again. I know that police being here currently and then moving, there's possible expansion for senior center. But at the fire station, what will be the use of that? Is there a potential to sell it? Is that something that can't be sold later and it has to stay in town property? Just kind of looking forward to potential money coming forward later after that is not in use anymore.
Kristen, excuse me, Chief, Nancy has the answer.
Well, no, I don't have the answer. I have my proposed answer.
And the value of that.
But that's under the purview of the select board, and so nobody here would know the answer to that. There is a committee in town right now that is reviewing all townwide properties.
Yes.
To determine their value and whether they should be sold. So it would be assumed that if this project goes forward, that the fire station would be added back to that inventory list and would be one of the assets in that. But once the chief moves out, he offers his hand. But I just would like to put in a plug for the Traces program.
Anything else, Chris? All right, Kathy?
Well, I just wanted to kind of respond to your answer about the smart building. The last classrooms that I taught in, the lights would come on when people would enter the room, and then as I was talking, the lights would go off. And I'd say, wave your hands. Lights on. And there was no way to manually put the lights back on, but of course we developed this process for making sure that the building knew that there were people there if you were in a too quiet meeting. So I'm guessing that you've been through this.
I'm not sure how long you last taught.
4 years. 4 years.
But there has been a lot of advances in that technology. I mean, there are sensors that you can modify, whatever, but every room does receive a switch that you can turn on.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Every room does have a switch for on and off. It can go as sophisticated as different scenes, depending on what room it may be, but it's just office space on and off, and then dimming capability depending on deal. But you should have had it.
Right, that's a great idea. Secondly, is it the case that all of the mechanical equipment is on the first floor?
No. So the mechanical room and electrical room,
Yeah.
yes, is on the lowest level.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like the heart of
Right.
where everything comes back to. We have air handlers on the roof,
Yep.
the third story, along with the heat pumps. So the two air handlers on the upper roof is for all fresh air that comes into the building. And then all the condensers are for heating and cooling.
Okay. The only reason I ask this is, the Seaport flood a couple of years ago had people talking about putting all of this equipment up on a roof. And while I'm certainly satisfied that you examined the degree to which the water is going to rise from Hewitt's Cove, I feel better knowing there's more
Yep.
stuff up top.
There's more money up the roof.
Exactly.
There are boilers in the mechanical room and the electrical room. The electrical service comes in there. But everything comes down to that lowest level. Theoretically, not theoretically, the truth is it's the closest to where our generator is, and it's helping reducing those costs. A lot of services are coming from that lowest level. So, trying to minimize, and it's not that exciting a portion of the building. So it is kind of at the lower left-hand corner here, but yes, it's in the basement of the lowest level. But there is the big call it guys, but the brains of the system is on its own.
Okay, all right, great. So it's diversified the pieces. Okay. And also, you mentioned that you've done a number of public safety facilities throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and your firm has a lot of experience in this. Are there 2 or 3 themes of what you think future needs would be? This is just kind of out of curiosity, more than anything else, of what you think our firefighters and our police officers are going to be.
Oh, operationally?
Yeah.
I think a big portion of it is the technology.
Okay.
Of not only the training areas, adaptability training, remote learning, camera-based, patrolling, drones, a lot of that type of technology that's up and coming. So providing that infrastructure, and capacity within the facility, is kind of what's future-proofing the building. Solar, all electric type buildings, those elements, electrical vehicle charging, not only for public, but as well as for the departments. So we are providing, I believe I shared last time, but providing infrastructure for opening day plus for the future. So that's really, different municipalities have different capacities, so it's really, but that's where it's started to go.
Okay, great, thank you.
Cover it.
Kathy, is that it?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, Jason?
So I'll keeping sort of with some of the themes we've already been across, and probably just asking the question slightly differently. I guess my first one would be, is there anything about this particular project that creates or is any particular design challenges? Meaning in terms of as we get into the project, is there anything about this that is particularly challenging or, might pose problems or could be costly or is really off or different in a way that we run a risk of execution or long-term costs that we haven't thought about?
Nothing that we haven't discussed already, either at this group or planning board or select board or with the town administrator. All projects have their challenges, it's just how they're handled. And who's involved and how it's discussed. And I know just my personal experience working here in town, a lot of great groups, a lot of great committees, a lot of educated groups and committees, and all the correct people are in the right spots to get the end results. So that's been rewarding on my end, just because it's, I don't say it's less work, it's not less work, but it's been a little bit of a relief because it's been challenging, but it's been answered with correct groups to presenting to and talking to, working with a great building committee, and OPM team and the chiefs. It's a team effort all around. So we don't foresee anything, but I think we've crossed the line. So far.
So in essence, we're not trying to thread any needles here in terms of, specific asks or requirements from. Then my second one really is, again, it's, anybody would understand that the longer you wait to do these types of projects, obviously the more they cost over time. It's all completely understandable. But is there anything about the current environment or your professional opinions, whether this is a question for you or for, I think it's a Hill, sorry, I should know. That, going to bid here in the fourth quarter of this year for the start of 23, are we facing unusual headwinds in terms of what these are going to come back with everything that's going on, whether it's a supply chain issue, labor issues, so on and so forth?
That's right. I've been talking a lot to the doctors too.
Paul Gals, so going into this fall, things seem to reach kind of a peak and are trending downwards in the cost estimates that have been produced that that we've been working with to craft the project budget. We've got a contingency that is kind of covered what we think we may encounter, and we are going to get a cost estimate on 60% construction documents in about 2 weeks, which is going to then hopefully substantiate some of the contingency and some of the escalation that we built in the prior estimate. And if that's relatively consistent, I think we probably did, the right amount of predicting as far as where the cost may be. We are planning on bidding this project in December, Christmas time. Snow's getting deep. Contractors are maybe a little hungrier. They got to pay all the Christmas bills, or who knows what else. But they're not building so much. They're looking at the work that's coming up for the next summer, and so having a bidding at that time of the year is advantageous as far as bid prices are concerned. And part of that is the idea that we would be breaking ground on the project in March, right after the snows have ended and the ground is thawed and so forth. So everything is set up very favorably as far as schedule is concerned, in order to be able to make this come out right as far as the bid costs and so forth. So,
And do we, this is more curiosity, did we bid out to 2, 3, or 4, or what's the usual process?
it is a public bid process that is all dictated by chapter 149 of the Massachusetts General Laws. It's very specific as far as the procedures that have to happen. And we're hoping that it's a lot more than 3 or 4.
Thank you.
Right now, we're in the middle of pre-qualifying file sub bids between subcontractors and general contractors. And now there's 6 general contractors and probably 80, 85 subcontractors. So pre-qualification process is we vet them, make sure that we've made them under due diligence, they're certified, go with that. So that'll be over the next couple of months. And then so it's a lengthy process and it's the approach yet. Got it.
So
Good, thank you.
So to follow on a little bit on this, would be on cost is, can we reconcile at all the cost per square foot of this building to any of the comparable towns? And I understand, obviously, there's new things and some things are different, but I would think some sense of what our total cost is to somebody else could be broken down to a per square foot.
Right, so currently right now, KDA has 3 or 4, either just have received bids or in the process of bidding. So in the near future, we will be able to kind of provide some sort of square foot cost. The challenge of that is, every site is different, every program is a little bit different, but there is a range there that we can justify, if you will, where we currently stand with today's number. Today's number is definitely higher than it was a year ago. It was definitely higher than 2 or 3 years ago. And I think Situate's been named a couple times here. I mean, it's. I think that was 9 or 10 years ago when that was completed. It wasn't through us, but I believe it was. I could be misspoken, but I think it was about that time ago. I could be wrong, but it's more costly now.
But I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
Just, I understand that everything costs more this year, but just to have some sense on a couple of the other buildings and to be able to point to, it's not that we're doing exceptional different things.
Sure.
It's just things cost 20% more this year, over the last 5 years.
Yeah, we like I said, there's a few that are happening right now. A little bit different, but it could be a quick kind of gut check, if you will, like where things are now, where they could be in December, January, and then where they were earlier this year.
Great.
And our estimators, sorry to cut you off. Our estimators, this is what they do. So they're estimating projects of all types. So they're very well tuned with today's numbers, today's products, today's supply chain issues. Very well tuned with the file subbidding, the general contract, what the overhead and profits are, insurances and bondings, everything while you're here, right? So we're always very confident to see those numbers, which we'll see in 2 weeks from today or this week, I think it is. Our last go around design development, which is this spring, I think the 2 estimators were within $500,000 of each other. Maybe even less. Actually.
Yes, I think it was less.
Split, I think, so that's how, with the same drawings as they had in front of them. So, it's very, no one has a crystal ball, but it's always pretty similar. And then we reconcile and we come up with those differences. But to your fact, yes, we can provide some more today's values.
That'd be great. Costs. And then just a second question is, I participated in a tour of the current facilities, and asked at the time, and I'm concerned I might have misunderstood. I thought I heard that when this building is complete, it's then going to go into the process of, I know it's going to be, the roof is going to be solar panel ready, but my understanding from the conversation was the intent was to put solar panels on shortly thereafter. go to start that process. Is that not correct?
So,
That was.
I mean, it's fine, I want to speak to it.
Okay. We're building the building to be solar ready.
Right.
Which means that all well, means that we'll have a more substantial structural elements to be able to support additional panels. We'll also have chases built into the new structure that's like hollow areas where you can very easily come in and run electrical lines and piping to the solar panels. But we're not going to take the next step to actually include the cost of solar panels, the whole array in this particular project. There's a bunch of reasons for that. I mean, one of them is procuring solar panels there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can, sometimes you can, there aren't like regular bidding. You go to a company and get proposals to say, well, how will we calculate what the town gets back and what will we, there are just a number of different ways of doing it. And we haven't figured out which one we'll do yet. We haven't talked to Hingham Light and Power. They're kind of helping us out a bit on what their understanding is of the latest way to do these things are. So another thing is you want to build the building and finish the building and be able to let the contractor go home and everybody's happy before you have people walking around, rather than putting all brand new complicated solar panels that are quite fragile up on a roof at the end of a project. Because bad things can happen, there could be breakage, there could be arguments back and forth between the contractors, so it's much more efficient and safe to have a company that specializes in solar panels come in after the fact. And again, just the whole procurement method, there are different ways you can do it, and everybody's kind of saying, yeah, let's just make it solar ready, and then we'll really take a hard look at what's the best way to do that. And how economical will it be? Because the solar panels aren't what they used to be when it was first coming up. We could sell right back to the electrical company. Now the cost that the electrical company is paying for electricity is generated by solar panels seems to be way low, and something's got to give. So. We don't want that on our watch, but we'll have it already once everybody else figures it out.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense? Does that make sense?
No, it does. I heard something different when I'm so that was helpful. Thanks.
Yes, Carol.
Well, thank you.
Brenda, you're up again. Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda. I'm sorry.
That's right, yeah.
Tina, I completely forgot. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, it's getting dark, so maybe you couldn't see. This is more of a comment, I think, than a question. But when we were talking to our capital markets people, Janet Morley noted that it would be credit positive to ratings agencies if we invest in our infrastructure and for the town to support debt exclusions to plan and build for our future. And she also noted that there's a risk involved with not taking care of our buildings. So I thought it would be interesting, and again, it's a comment really more than a question, if we could quantify those risks and what it could mean for the town if we didn't move forward with this project.
Do you have any ideas?
No, I just really was, it was such an interesting meeting, and she was really so positive about the town moving forward with projects like this and a vision for the future. And talking about risk for not doing it just really kind of flipped the script for me a little bit. So I don't know, more of a comment than a question, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think the point is well taken. And And certainly, I think we have an idea of what some of the risks of not taking care of our buildings are by simply looking at North Station right now and the police station. There are risks, certainly to the people who have to work there and to the townsfolk. So I think the point is well made.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have another question or?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
As truly well thought out and planned for as this building seems to be, and I think the problem as a town that we have is that we have two big projects, both of which need to be done, both of which have very big price tags. And we have to somehow or other help our town residents understand why both of these projects need to happen now. So one of my questions is there any way that you can imagine staging a part of this building or a part of the cost of this building so that it doesn't all come at the same time? It's the same question I'll be asking the Foster School folks. Is there any way of staging any part of this so that the two costs don't all come together, that they're super total at this very same year? I don't know if that's possible, but that's what I'm curious about.
I'm not an expert on capital financing, but I assume that the town will get long-term bonds for both projects. So it's not like it's a cash and, we're gonna pay cash for something, so
right, but the jump in people's taxes pay for that.
Getting people, but the taxes would be based upon what the payments were on the bonds, as opposed to like a giant lump sum of Foster and us all in 2 or 3 year time period or something like that. It's, whatever it will be, it will extend over time period. So I would think that the bond people that we talk to try to figure out what's the right way of structuring the bonds is that's the key, because there's a lot of money in and it's got to be the most efficient ways you can to try to finance it.
So there's no piece of this project that could be done a year or two later.
Not our project.
It's the question every family asks themselves when they look at things they want to do. Is there any way we can do pieces of it? So that's the reason for the question.
It's an understandable question.
All right, thank you.
And thank you. Okay, but let me just pick up on Brenda's point, because Sean said that we're planning for 30,000 population. We only have 20 or so thousand here. So, there's additional bunk space, office space on the fire side. I'm guessing, Chief, that maybe there is additional cells or maybe office space or something. On your side, could some of that be staged in terms of outfitting either the bunk rooms, the offices, or some of that stuff?
The cells, I'm sure Sean can speak to a lot more than me, are very expensive to build, and they're sort of hardened into the building. So when we move into our current station, we're missing 2 cells, right? And we were told, oh, we'll put those in later. Well, they never come, and they usually been there, and we need them, right? So that's because they're very expensive to do. So a lot of the office space is designed. You can segregate it and make it into additional offices. Good examples on the second floor is our detectives area. We currently have 4 detectives, 3 detectives and a supervisor. The new facility allows for 6 desks. So, and that room also has like a meeting area. So if we needed expansion, we needed a room, we could segregate an area like that, for example, and make it into different offices. Okay. So it's been thought of how would you be able to do it in the future? And there's that. The locker room is another great example of the moving wall and divider. I mean, we have 75 officers sworn, part-time and full-time, and then we have civilian staff on top of that. Our current facility, we don't have the space to allow them to all have lockers. We're maxed out right now. None of our part-time employees have lockers. It's obviously not good for them not to have a place to keep their equipment and everything else. So there's a real need for not only our staff, but for the community as well, coming into our facility. We don't have a modern facility to be able to accommodate the town's needs and the community's needs. So the lobby is a great example. I think if it was better tours, seeing the cramped space in that lobby, that just doesn't allow for any privacy for people that are coming and giving information to an officer to take a report. A lot of personal information. For the victim of crime, they just speak about that. There's no lobby next to who knows who else is there. So this building's taken into account a lot of that and the ability to grow later if we need to.
Okay. Chief Murphy, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Just you mentioned that we are, building this with some room for expansion, specifically, a couple of extra offices and the extra bunk rooms. Both of those I can actually see getting used. And to be honest with you, I don't necessarily think that there's probably a huge cost savings by not outfitting them, because you're talking an office and you're talking bunk rooms and the lockers that go in it. And, my fear would be that if we didn't do it, then when we wanted to expand them later on, we're not going to be able to potentially get the same cabinetry, whatever the case, and it's going to be different. But, sometimes we actually would use those additional bunk rooms for storm coverage, or if we have people training or anything else. So I do think that they would be useful for us. So.
All right, thank you. So another question, Bob or Sean. So the second major building that we're going to be discussing, and that will be next week, of course, is Foster. And that's an electric building, but they're using geothermal. So they're sinking all kinds of wells and bringing up water from underneath. Did you guys consider a geothermal for the site, or?
Yes, we did. I think I don't remember when that was, but it was in the earlier discussion with Net Zero. We, depending on the quantities and capacity, we didn't do the full investigation. We didn't drill wells in to figure out where correct depths would have to be. And that would have determined how many wells we would have needed. The real determination that we came down to was based on the site, based on our building footprint and the parking lots. We had very limited site left you have to space these wells so far apart to make it work sufficiently. So based on that, we would have a limited number of wells to be able to utilize. So the cost to not only do the investigation, to do the design, to do the wells, and not really get your bang for your buck necessarily, it was determined not to go that route. Also because we have had such, we're pushing water around for the heating and cooling, but we still have that boiler, the gas boiler. So that was kind of the trade-off.
Okay, great, that makes sense. And the last question I had is, do we know what the size of some of the other facilities that we've talked about this evening are? Norwell, the Situate, Needham, and our size?
Yeah. So you guys are about 49,500 square feet. Needham, we did. I did not work on that, but I believe it's right around 60,000 square feet. And I believe that was headquarters for both. Chief Murphy, you might be able to respond to that, but police and fire headquarters. So that was 60,000 square feet. The other ones I'm not familiar with. Situate, I know we did talk about in the beginning of this project, but we weren't involved in that. I think we go back to that spreadsheet that you requested. We'll pull the ones that we worked on. I think Hill can pull a few where they worked on, and we can kind of work, kind of see the two side by side. That was somewhat out of that.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more thing with that point is, you mentioned Situate and Norwell, for comparisons, those are significantly smaller departments than we have. So it might not be an accurate representation if you look at departments that are just happen to be close by, but those similarly sized agencies would probably be a better fit to it.
Right. Good point.
Is Needham closer or bigger, or what would that be? That's why I'm.
I think a little bit larger than here.
Yeah.
And again, that was the headquarters for the fire. But when we
Yeah.
provide this documentation, whenever we get around back to this group, we'll show the population size of the town plus the department sizes and its square footage. So that you'll be able to see it. We did do this back in feasibility study, so it'd be kind of a quick find. But we'll update.
Thank you.
Can I just comment one thing on that too? So just one thing to take into consideration is not just the community size and the, the type of call volume they're doing, but look at, for example, Hyannis. There's another project that KBA did. They only have one fire station because the community is so much geographically smaller. So the size of their station compared to ours is a lot more significant, so sometimes that's what you have to look at. For example, with Needham, I believe even though Needham is a bigger community than us, I know they have 2 stations. They may have a third, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily compare, at least on the fire end, when you're saying, okay, this is a headquarters, this is a satellite station, because you can have multiple vehicles operating out of some of these other stations. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good.
We're good.
Good.
I just had one question. The Inflation Reduction Act that was just passed, is there any money is anyone looking to see if there's any money related to how we're making food efficient that we could get? Who looks at that? I don't know.
Doesn't end up turning like. I think that's Tom Mayo's office.
It's worth following up on, sir.
Okay.
So,
I think that was. Well, no, when we were discussing the grant side of that.
Bob, do you know if there's any free money around?
Hey, you signed it like 8 hours ago, right?
Just told Paul, I did a real quick and dirty look just from information in the newspapers, and it didn't seem like there was anything on police or fire or public safety facilities. There might be a lot of political reasons for that nowadays too, so.
And there's no state money like the school
No,
building.
state money, no federal.
None of that.
No federal, no state. Just whether this new act has any money, and 89% sure the answer's no.
Thank you.
I think if I could just say that like I was reminding myself back to when we were talking about not having a grant writing position, part of that was because Art had grant writing experience, and the thought was he would be able to be looking for grants in that context. So that was the discussion we had in the spring. I guess that was the spring.
So,
Yeah.
is that it, Kate?
That was it.
Kristen? Kathy?
All set?
Jason?
Well, good.
Karen?
All set?
Good.
All straight?
One more time around?
Tina.
Done. I'm sorry.
All set, thank you.
Thank you.
What did the selectmen ask you that we didn't?
Good question.
If only there were a select person.
Obviously, I missed part of the presentation. We asked a lot of questions on with the changing nature of police work, our hope to add additional personnel, police and fire. To something in culture region. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Sean.
I think we did touch on that actually as well. I think it was just questioned differently, but yeah, no, that was mostly a lot, very similar question.
We did talk a little bit more about the cost estimating that we're going through on this project. And, seems like it's like really happy with that.
Joe had a couple good questions on inflation,
Right.
how the inflationary costs were factored into that, so I don't know. How do you want to do that a little bit?
We actually did touch on that exactly.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I think we are done, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate the time and the answers and
Really helpful.
the comments. It's very helpful. Thank you. Chief Murphy, thank you very much. Folks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Keith, where you go? What questions are you glad we didn't ask?
Good answer.
Moving ourselves recently.
Yeah, right. You don't have to tell me this.
I want to know if we've got the comfort caps yet. Remember that was the other.
Did you see that I pushed the cancer? What do they call when you get those too many? An invasive species.
Wow.
I have a cat campaign. I have a cat campaign. Cats,
We digress.
We digress. So we have basically covered the entire agenda with the last item being matters not anticipated within 48 hours. And there really are none. So I will accept the motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Hey, roll call vote. Brenda,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Hayden, Kristen.
Aye.
Kathy, Jason,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
and Tina.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
It's easier to.